All right. What's up, horror fans? Pete here from the Lassercast, where me and my good friend Danny over there have been talking about horror movies and streaming shows for 3 years plus this point. And you know what? In all those years, we've covered some great content, some great shows, and I'm just super excited because Danny's been going to Comic-Con and he found out about this show, Hysteria, and I'm really glad that he did because I am thoroughly enjoying this show. What about you, my man?
Uh, I it was a phenomenal moment. I think it was Thursday. Yeah, Thursday at Comic-Con, the opening day of Comic-Con. And the way I've been doing it over the last few years, especially since we've had our channel, is I usually go Thursday and Friday. This year I only went Thursday
Yeah,
during the week. And I try to target the horror panels, the horror things that they're going to focus on so that I can record panels, record Q&As, and typically we have gotten some really good engagement on the channel. Last year, the big topic was this guy. Chucky season 3 debuted at Comic-Con, and I made videos with Charlotte. Charlotte was cosplaying as Chucky, and it was great. So, by the way, hashtag save Chucky, the show. But this year, on that opening Thursday, one of the first main stage panels was the Mayfair Witches season 2, which I
oh yeah,
posted the entire panel up on our channel, the Q&A and the panel.
nice.
They had some awesome guests. We got a preview of season 2, which is always fun. And then in the afternoon, I'm kind of looking around horror panels, and I see Hysteria, new horror show about satanic panic. And I'm like, okay. I Google it. I see, oh shit, Bruce Campbell's in this show. And it should have, rang in my brain right away. Bruce Campbell is a Comic-Con veteran.
Yeah,
Back in the glory days of Ash vs. Evil Dead, when Athena and I were going to Comic-Con with press badges for Geeks of Doom,
nice.
I was sitting at round tables with Bruce Campbell, Dana DiLorenzo, and the rest of the cast, Ray Santiago, the rest of the cast of Ash vs. Evil Dead. And it was like the highlight of my year where like I became genuine friends with Dana DiLorenzo, and I got to see Bruce Campbell and actually talk to him on an almost yearly basis when Ash vs. Evil Dead was on. And it didn't occur to me the whole day Thursday that, oh, Bruce will probably be here. And so
Yeah,
we go into the room 405 at the Javits Center in Manhattan, and out walks the king himself. And in typical Comic-Con fashion, he is throwing money out to the crowd. The
wow.
man knows how to keep his positive vibes with the community.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
and he was joined by Julie Bowen, who I've been a fan of for, it's weird to say this, but 30 years. I mean, she was in Happy Gilmore. Uh,
Oh,
she, she's, of course, probably much more known now for Modern Family.
yeah,
She's really great in this show so far. And Anna
agreed.
Camp, who, I don't know, did you and Sherry watch True Blood?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah, so Anna Camp was in True Blood.
yeah.
The closest thing to being able to watch full-fledged vampire porn with my wife that I've ever had. Uh,
Yes,
and the three of them were there with Matthew Scott Kane, who is the showrunner and the creator of this show, and one of the executive producers. And the panel was just so much fun. And then they teased a 30-minute part of the first episode. So we
okay.
basically got to watch the first 30 minutes of the pilot at Comic-Con. I posted a video about it. I did a short review of just that 30 minutes of the pilot. And then I
Sure.
recorded 2 separate videos of their panel. It was, the audience, Pete, was roaring. And I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
and I was with 2 friends of mine from work who are not the biggest horror fans in the world. They kind of came along with me for the ride into this panel, not knowing what to expect. And
Yeah.
they were they were on the floor. They were in hysteria. And it was at that point where I think I messaged you right away, and I was like, we have to cover this show for the Lacercast. It's so good. And
Yeah.
I was so happy when you started messaging me during the week. Now, you tell me if I'm wrong. It felt like it took you a little while, maybe like the first episode, there was like a warming up period for you. Because your first couple of messages were like, oh, so this is the show you want to cover. And then by like the third or fourth message, it was like, oh, this show's really awesome. I can't wait to cover it. I'm so glad you told me to watch it. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Because I didn't want to like just sit and do short reviews of this channel for all 8 episodes.
Right. No, I think I just had like a really busy week, so like I couldn't get around to it, right away. I just had like a busy week with work, but then like when I was able to just start knocking them out, that's when I really got into it. But that brings up one thing that's kind of interesting. Like the whole show is streaming now, right? Like every episode.
They did it. We should say this. It's on Peacock, and they did a dump. It's all 8 episodes. Went up Thursday the 25th. No, that's today. Went up Thursday the 17th. I think. Oh, so it went up Friday the 18th. I got it. Because Thursday the 17th was the Comic-Con Thursday where they premiered the first 30 minutes of the pilot, and then they're like, tomorrow it'll be up on. And I think I woke up Friday morning early for work, and I think I finished episode 1 at like 5:45 to 6:15 a.m.
Oh my God. Yeah, well, I mean, so that's what I'm kind of worried about, right? Because we're covering episodes 1 through 4 today, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to enjoy it, and I'm hoping that people that have enjoyed the show are going to check it out. But when they have these shows where they kind of dump them all at once, especially if it's on a service that's like not as commonly owned as a lot of, or subscribed to as a lot of the other services, I'm afraid that this show is going to kind of fade into obscurity and, not get the recognition that it deserves. But it's interesting to me that Peacock would pick up a show like this. Obviously, there's that sort of that Stranger Things comparison that I've seen a lot of people make already. And I know everyone would love to have a Stranger Things type show that's as big a hit as that was on their streaming service. But I actually personally believe that this show is like superior to Stranger Things in many ways. And we can talk about that in a second. But I want to talk about the creator of the show. You said that he was on that panel, Matthew Scott Kane. If you look up his IMDb, he's listed on a lot of different interesting projects, things that we've covered on this channel. But a lot of times it's like production assistant. He's not like a writer on most of these projects. Like Annabelle Comes Home, he's not a writer. American Horror Story, he's not a writer. But then he's a writer on the show called Stitchers, which I never saw. I don't know if you saw. No. And then he is like the creator of this show. So I guess that they saw so much potential in his idea. They're like, hey, this guy doesn't have a lot of writing experience, but we're going to give him this show. And I think it's great personally. I think that like every character, there isn't a part in the show where I'm like, oh, they're focused on this character now. I don't like this character. Like every character and every story arc is interesting. So, which I think, go ahead.
No, I don't mean to cut you off, but like I 100% agree. And to tie this back to Stranger Things, I looked at this not as it feels like Stranger Things. It feels very specifically like the last season of Stranger Things, where they had the satanic panic. They were in the, Eddie was there and he was playing Metallica in the Upside Down. And that, it felt like that. Mm-hmm. The difference is, to your point, is that last season of Stranger Things, I only wanted to watch the show when certain characters were on the screen.
Yeah.
There were a number of characters in the last season of Stranger Things that when they were on the screen, I either rolled my eyes or I just wasn't invested in their storyline.
Right.
And to your point, every character on this show. Adult, child, Bruce Campbell. I am fully invested. I like that there's like a mystery going around. There's also some pure horror stuff going around. And the show is funny. There's great chemistry between these actors. I mean, the three leads who are not the adults, the three high school leads, have such great chemistry together. And then they branch off with other high school kids and have great chemistry with them, which is all you can really ask in a show like this.
Totally agree. Yes, yes. And I wanted to go kind of through each character and each actor right after this. But as long as we're still talking about Stranger Things, what I wanted to say was we've covered Stranger Things on this channel, and we've covered the Fear Street movies on this channel. Now, one thing that I think that Fear Street and Stranger Things has done, and I've mentioned this before, is that they'll just like cram so many songs from the decade that they're set in, right? Like Stranger Things, 80s, blah, here's all these songs, right? And then Fear Street had like 90s stuff, 70s stuff, modern day stuff, but it's just like, here's one song. Okay, we stopped this song. Here's another one. It's almost like the original Suicide Squad movie where it's just like one song after the other. And then they're like, hey, you know, we're in the 80s. We're playing, you know, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And we're playing Bon Jovi or something, right? And what I like about this show is it's set in the 80s. Yes, they do play 80s music, but they play 80s metal, and they don't play the super obvious 80s metal. They play stuff that, like, if you were growing up in the 80s, like myself, or the 90s, and this stuff has been around, you're like, oh, I know that song, but that's only because I enjoy metal and I listen to it. And there isn't like a scene where they're like, oh, let's talk about Ghostbusters because that just came out, or like we're gonna dress up as Ghostbusters, or like you know, I'm gonna have MC Hammer pants on, or some kind of shit like that. It's set in the 80s, but they're not like, hey, it's the 80s, it's the 80s. They don't do that shit. It's just like the 80s are around them, and they act the way that people would in the 80s, but it's not like they are like using it to be like, see, that's why this is interesting. The interesting part of the show are the characters, and really, really, the show really plays on the satanic panic crisis.
Yeah.
And it shows how like authentically it could cause big problems for people in a small town.
Yeah. To your point about the music, the first 4 episodes are all named. The episode names are 80s metal songs. Hysteria, the premiere by Def Leppard, Die Young by Black Sabbath, Can I Play with Madness, which is, of course, Iron Maiden, and they also, their band, Death Crunch, also performs Number of the Beast at their first. And then episode 4 was named Dance Macabre. And I looked it up and it said that was named for the Ghost song, but how long has Ghost been around?
No, yeah. I actually love that because Ghost has not been around that long. They've been around since like maybe early to mid 2000s. They're not from the 80s, but there's that one part in this episode I really loved it where they're doing that chant when they're doing the ritual where they're like Satanas, Asmodeus, Lucifer. Like that's from a Ghost song. They're from a very famous Ghost song that's on TikTok. Yeah. But yeah, I noticed that too with the names of the episodes. And then you know, I just kind of wanted to bring up too that the first episode is directed by Jordan Vaught Roberts.
The first 2, I think, yeah.
I think he did the first one and the last one. You might be right though. He did the second one.
He definitely directed 2 episodes, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it might. Well, I think though it might be the first and the last then.
Okay.
But he's kind of a controversial guy because he did Kong Skull Island. And they did one of those Everything Wrong With, and he got really mad about that. But we've talked about how much we love Kong Skull Island. I think he's a great choice if you're going to have a genre director on a show. And then I don't know if you know this, Danny, but do you know who wrote the second episode of the show?
I did notice that, yes. Jamie Flanagan, who, if you know the last name, he is related to, I believe he's the younger brother. Is he?
Yes.
Oh,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and he has had his name in the credits of most of Mike Flanagan's projects. He was a writer on Hill House, Bly, I think all of them. I think he's been like either an executive producer, or co-writer on all of the episodic Netflix Mike Flanagan shows. So,
Yeah.
like the people who made this, obviously, and I can tell you from being there at that Comic-Con panel, Matthew Scott Kane, he has a genuine love of this stuff. This isn't like a group of people looking for what could be that next big cash grab show. These are people who love the genre, who love that time period. I just wanted to bring up this funny story. This might be, if you're watching this and if you like the show, go back and watch the 2 panel discussions that I posted from Comic-Con. One of the stories was they tried to get Kiss music.
Okay.
And Kiss actually denied them. That was the only band. And they were like making a joke about like wow, boy, Kiss got like really lame in their old age. And they made a reference to the fact that they make a Kiss joke in the show. And I think it's episode 3 or 4, where they're talking about like how they have to, when they perform Death Crunch, they have to wear their makeup. And they're like, we can't wear the makeup anymore. And he's like, come on, how many songs do you know from Kiss once they took the makeup off? And they're like, fine, you made your point.
Right. No, it's great because it feels like someone that actually legitimately likes metal wrote this show versus someone that's like, okay, let's put in some Black Sabbath, some Led Zeppelin, like the stuff that's like the most obvious, some Pink Floyd.
Yeah, let's Google heavy metal and and just find a song from each group.
Right, exactly. And so really to me, because you were talking about like kind of my response and warming up to the show, really the part that sold me on this show was when they first have their concert. They play Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. And I really love Iron Maiden. And I feel like Iron Maiden is not like as well known in the pop culture zeitgeist as like Metallica or I'm just trying to think of some other metal bands, but like, they've been around longer and they have a huge following. People know Iron Maiden, like they'll be referenced in songs and stuff like Teenage Dirtbag. But like, I don't know if like they really play that many Iron Maiden songs in movies and stuff. It's kind of funny because they start off this one movie that was like a big hit on Netflix. It was called Rebel Ridge. I don't know if you watched that one, but like that starts off with Number of the Beast. I really love that fucking scene, and I just love this show. So I think maybe we should segue over to like who's on the show and like what's going on, like what's the actual plot. So the main guy, it's a teenage boy. His name's MJ Anthony. He's playing Dylan Campbell. It's kind of funny that the main family, their last name is Campbell, right, on the show.
They brought that up at Comic-Con. They brought that up at Comic-Con. Apparently, according to Matthew Scott Kane, the original name of the family was Cunningham, which would have been, I guess, a tie-in to the great Corey Cunningham from Halloween. No, I'm kidding. Probably Friday the 13th, Sean S. Cunningham. But apparently they said that there was an Dylan Cunningham living in Michigan, and like they didn't want so it ended up becoming Campbell, and and Bruce, of course, is taking full credit for it.
Okay.
Which makes sense.
Yes.
I also like that Julie Bowen's name is Linda, which like Linda was Bruce Campbell's girlfriend in The Evil Dead.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
And
nice.
did you catch Bruce Campbell's name?
Oh, so I got all their names on here. What is it again? It's like Dandridge.
Yes, he's Officer Dandridge.
Yes.
And I don't know if we've ever gotten his first name, but I would not be shocked to find out if his name is Jerry later on.
Oh, it's Ben Dandridge.
Oh, all right.
According to the wiki.
Yeah, I would not be shocked though if that was a intentional choice to name him Dandridge after, of course, Jerry Dandridge in Fright Night.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a great fucking reference having the '80s thing too. Let's just talk about Bruce Campbell. I kind of wanted to go through the younger people first and stuff, but I want to talk about Bruce Campbell on this show because here's the thing. when you watch Stranger Things, when you watch these streaming shows, you can start to kind of predict things. You're like, this is the way this person's going to react. When they say this comment to this person, they're going to like not believe what they're saying. They're going to dismiss them. They're going to make a stupid joke. You can kind of predict dialogue. What I love about Bruce Campbell's character in general is that he's an intelligent police officer that's like the equivalent of someone that would be on like a prestige show like Mayor of Easttown or like True Detective, where he's like really thinking things out and using logic. Whereas on like a show like Stranger Things or like a lower kind of quality show, they would just be like, oh, these kids are stupid. They don't know what they're doing. Or like, you know, they would just be dismissive and make stupid jokes. But he's like literally like following logical steps to answer questions. And I just love that. And he's kind of playing against type too, Bruce Campbell. He's not goofy and silly. He's not like condescending or arrogant. He's just like this really nice fatherly figure on this show. I love it.
Yeah, he at Comic-Con, he made a point of saying that he basically plays the cop that you wish all cops were.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
And yeah, it really is against type. And it you know, Bruce Campbell has typecasted himself over the years. You know, he basically brings an element of Ash to almost everything. And I think that that's kind of the expectation. I think that like when a casting director brings in Bruce Campbell, very often it's because they want their show to pull in those Evil Dead fans, those horror fans, and they want to see specific things from Bruce Campbell. So it is genuinely nice to see him in such a almost reserved capacity. It's very interesting. Julie Bowen also talked about how, like, you know, she'd been on Modern Family for so long that when she got the script, she was like, oh, you want me to play suburban mom? And I'm like, I don't really. And she was like, I don't really need to do that anymore. Right. And then she said she got to the end of the first episode, the end of the first episode, and there's a scene at the end of the first episode involving her character, Linda, and she was like, oh, I'm not just going to be like mom, I'm actually going to have stuff to do in this show. And she got really excited and decided to sign on. And I think that's what's great about this show is that the adults are fleshed out characters. They're not just playing suburban mom, you know, crazy religious cult leader, John Q cop. They actually do get to flex like their acting skills a little bit in a show that is scary but also very silly, and I think that that's a good thing. I think that like keeps it keeps things level on the show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of want to run off that point that you just said, because with like Stranger Things, and it really does sound like I'm dumping on Stranger Things today. Maybe I am. But, you know, when you have a show like that and you have parents for a kid, they're like, okay, well, this could be the caring parent. That's the nice one. So then I guess like the other one could be the goofy one that has some kind of quirk, or they're like the absent-minded parent. Like we made this parent close to an original character and likable. So the other parent has to be a joke. And when you watch things like that, you're always thinking like, why the fuck is this like good-looking, compassionate woman married to this like asshole, you know, schlub of a husband, right? On this show, it's interesting because the mom is this really great mom that like she's not just like paranoid about her son and, you know, a foil to the main character. She has her own issues that she's facing throughout this show, which could be its own show of just her.
Yeah.
But she goes kind of back and forth between like, I'm worried about my son to like supporting her son, right? And then her husband, who like if this was a lesser show, he'd just be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, baby, or like, what's for dinner, ma? Like it'd be that kind of shit. But like her husband's like this really compassionate guy, this like nice guy. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up because please be careful up there. That's my 50th anniversary Texas Chainsaw Massacre chainsaw that Charlotte and I won at Horror Trivia.
Nice.
Yeah. I can't wait to take that out of the box later. I can't wait to take the chainsaw out of the box later. That's a weird sentence.
Makes sense.
Again, I'm not dumping on Stranger Things at all. But I think it became a running joke on Stranger Things that Mike Wheeler's dad was literally just a schlub in a chair.
Right.
And he'd be like, Dad, the world is ending. All right, be home for dinner.
Right.
And like they tried to give the mom some like stuff to go to like bite into over the years. I think also the thing with Stranger Things, it's like it feels like it was on the air 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was only a couple of years ago. And like I feel like Stranger Things really failed to capitalize on their momentum with these long breaks. Like there's jokes, Millie Bobby Brown is married. It's fucking insane. Like that is insane. She was like a child when the show started, and it's 4 seasons, and now she's married, and she's going to come back and play a teenager in season 5. And it's like, yeah, like get back on the air already. The kids are going to be on AARP. So the thing, like, I think when you're referencing that type of like character, I think you're referencing Mike Wheeler's dad on Stranger Things. Whereas, like you said, the dad on this show kind of gives off that vibe initially, but then there's this great moment where Julie Bowen's laying in bed and she's reading this like book about the occult, and her husband walks in and she's having like an inner meltdown, and she like hides the book under the covers, and he's like, "What are you reading? Come on, what do you got, a Playgirl under there?"
Right.
And she shows him the book, and like instead of him doing like the Mike Wheeler dad thing where he'd be like, "You're going crazy, honey. I'll be downstairs for dinner."
Right.
He takes out a copy of the book himself, and he goes,
I love that.
Yeah, and then they have this genuinely like heartwarming and funny moment together where they're playing on a Ouija board.
Yeah.
Which I loved. And they're like, they spell out the word blanket, and she's like, "Are you cold?" And he's like, "A little." Like I thought that was such a cute moment.
Yeah.
So like I really like the adults on this show, but I think we should talk about the kids, because the kids are the backbone of this show.
Absolutely.
I was a little, given how freaking great they are, I was kind of upset that none of them came to Comic-Con. Like, I will never say, don't bring out Bruce Campbell. And Julie Bowen and Anna Camp were a shitload of fun. But, like, these 3 kids, MJ Anthony, who plays Dylan, Kiara Aurelia, who plays Jordy, and Kenzel Curtis, who plays Spud, they are an amazing trifecta of characters. And then you have a couple of the other characters, Judith, played by Jessica Tresca, Faith, who is involved in the opening scene, like the scene that gets this show going. She's played by Nikki Hahn. And Millie Shapiro from Hereditary is there. And every time she shows up, it's this like awkward but hilarious moment. Like she shows up to like one of the cult things with an actual goat at one point.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this out loud on our channel.
Oh, no.
So Mike Flanagan is apparently doing an 8-episode Carrie show for Amazon Prime that has surfaced since Comic-Con. He didn't mention that at Comic-Con. It has since come out. It feels like, and I don't know, it feels like that Amazon Prime were like, "We'll let you do the Dark Tower, but you have to do Carrie first." And he was like, "Yeah, all right, I'll do Carrie." And it's Mike Flanagan, so it's going to be fucking great.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw out that if you want to make your Carrie a little bit different from the Carrie 2, Carrie remakes that we have seen,
yeah,
Millie fucking Shapiro as Carrie would be amazing.
Okay. Have you ever read the Carrie book?
Yeah, Carrie's not a beautiful girl in the book.
She's not Sissy Spacek.
She's an awkward, Uh, I hate to say, but she's kind of like a little chunky in the book.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
And I'm not saying that that is Millie Shapiro. I just think Millie Shapiro has such an unique look to her. I mean, like
right.
her face was all over the Hereditary poster, and like her awkward acting style in that movie and her unique look made her character stand out so much. And I
Oh,
think it helps
absolutely.
her in this show too. And I think she would just kill it. Give it, given the
Ah,
opportunity, given the opportunity to sink her teeth into fucking Carrie, that would be an amazing casting choice. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I've seen other people say that. I'm not the first person to say that, but I
yeah,
happen to think that would be a great casting choice. But getting back to this, the kids on this show, the high school, the kids, they're all probably 21 to 30. But the kids on this show are fantastic. And you never once go, oh, come on, bring Bruce Campbell back. Come on, where's Julie Bowen? Where's Anna Camp? And
yeah,
that means a lot.
right. No, I know, and to me, it's funny because when the show first started out, when I first started watching it, you have this scene that you kind of anticipate from a show that's like set in the 80s, and it's going to be like this thriller where it's like a girl and her boyfriend, they're on a bed, and like the girl is awkward about going to the next step. Like that's a very cliche scene that we've seen in a lot of horror shows, horror movies, absolutely, where like she doesn't want to take things too far. Then it's like she thinks her mom's coming home, and all of a sudden it's this masked, stranger in her house who has this sort of like, if you get comic book stuff, they kind of look like they're from the Court of Owls, which are these like people in Gotham that have these
I
white
even know
masks.
who those people are.
There you go. So you know what I'm talking about. But that's what the masked attacker looks like. I'm watching that scene. I'm like, okay, this seems like something I've seen before. The very next scene after the girl is kidnapped is that we cut this montage of Happy Hollow, which is the setting of this show. And it's like, oh, look how wonderful Happy Hollow is. There's like people throwing out the garbage, and there's, just like a montage of the people open up stores and stuff. And I'm like, okay, this seems like something I've seen before. I think that like when it really starts to get unique and interesting is all the stuff with the mom, but then just the band trying to rise in fame and how like what they do to rise in fame. And what I really like about it is they make this connection between the occult and like Satanism and metal music, and they're like, let's use that. And it's funny because every episode it feels like, oh, they're gonna get in trouble. They shouldn't have done this. Like this thing is gonna get them in big trouble. And then somehow it kind of works for their advantage, and they just keep
Yeah.
getting more popular and kind of accomplishing what they want. But then like they just keep getting deeper and deeper into this satanic stuff.
Yeah.
And one, I'm sorry, just one last thing I really like is that like with the Satanism, it's like, no, they're kind of going there with this stuff. Like it's not just sort of like background Satanism stuff. They're using pentagrams. They're going to have like blood sacrifices. There's like an actual cult so far in episode 4. So I don't know. I just like that touch as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, so like in that opening scene, you're talking about these like masked kidnappers come in, and we end up finding out that the boy gets killed. He gets dragged off. He gets killed. The girl gets returned home safely. Her mother is played by Anna Camp, aka Tracy, who is a very religious church leader. So there's already that aspect of like, this feels like an inside job. And there's like this genuine cult conspiracy on one side. And then on the other side, like you said, you have these 3 kind of loser kids, outcast kids in a metal band in 1989 Michigan who want to put on a show, but they have no friends. So they think, oh, everybody's talking about this kid who's missing, and they think it was a satanic cult. Let's put a pentagram on our poster. Let's wear the makeup. Let's, talk about blood sacrifices. And it gets the attention of like the girl in school that Dylan, played by MJ Anthony, who, did you realize that he was the little kid from Krampus?
No, but that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the little kid who like rips up the letter and causes Krampus to come in Krampus. Amazing. He like the girl of his dreams turns out she's really into this satanic stuff.
Yeah.
To the point where she like might actually be in like a fucking Satanist. And like it goes very quickly from like, hey, let's draw a pentagram on our poster to, hey Dylan, you know what would be cool is if you murdered this cat. And if you don't want to murder the cat, can you like carve a pentagram into your hand? There's this fucking crazy moment in, I want to say episode 3, where they're at the funeral of the kid who died in like that opening scene.
Yeah.
And Dylan's family shows up, and Dylan has his hand wrapped in a bandage, and the mom of the dead kid like rips at his bandage in front of the whole church to expose his pentagram. And then as that happens, a fucking cross falls down, and it's like, that was like great shit. That like felt like a scene almost cut out of like an Omen movie, which we covered on this channel.
Yes,
and,
yes.
And I just love that. I have said these 3 words many, many times on our channel. Cults are scary.
Yes, yes.
There's a reason why I passionately defend Halloween 6, because one of those things that has always creeped me out, one of those like genuine things in horror, very few things actually get to me. Cults scare me. Because cults are very often, there's an idea of a demon or Satan or this or that, but it's usually just human beings with fucking warped ideas, taking those warped ideas to the next level and attacking the innocent.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the fact that I've lived through the last decade and potentially the next 4 years, but it feels like that can and does happen all the fucking time. And so you have the cults. You have 2 separate cults in this series so far. You have like the high school kids led by Judith, Jessica Tresca, who has like their cult to the band, to Death Crunch. Which culminates in a fucking crazy scene at the end of episode 4.
Yeah.
And then you also have the secret cult that we just know Tracy is involved with. There's this like hidden preacher played by Garrett Dillahunt that he hasn't really come out of the shadows yet, but I can't wait for him. Also, I don't know if you know this, but Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs are going to be in this show so far.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, they're going to be in the show. They have not been on it yet. We've only covered episodes 1 through 4, but they are apparently in episodes 5 through 8 at some point. I cannot wait to see them.
Yeah, shit, yeah.
So, like the cults just do that weird thing for me where it kind of makes it feel, no matter how silly and demonic and out there the show I'm watching is, it always makes it feel like there's an air of realism to it.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that stuff kind of works for me. Like anytime the scenes with Faith, Nikki Hahn and her mother always made me feel genuinely uncomfortable, where like and I love Nikki Hahn. Her like feels like she's fighting back against her mother. She has some great scenes with I think I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'm sorry. It's like Kiara Aurelia, who plays Geordie.
Yeah.
Where she's trying to like rekindle this friendship that they had when they were kids. And that like her mother basically told her, you can't hang out with that girl because she's into bad things, And I feel like we've all had that moment where our parents have said like, do you really have to hang out with that kid?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
for me, it was weird because it was like my mom was like, "Do you really need to start a YouTube channel with this weirdo from Texas?"
I
No.
believe me. Yeah, she's right. She's onto something there, man. No, I like with all the cult stuff. Like, okay, I keep saying this, but this is the reason why it's important to talk about the show is because things happen that you wouldn't necessarily predict, and so like they do find the kidnapped football player, the jock. They find his body in the woods, right? Now, on another show, what you would expect would be that his body be in like some kind of gruesome way, and they'd be like, look what they did to his body. This is so horrible, right? We're really dealing with a real monster here. Or it'd be like, here's his body, and then, oh, look at this weird design that's on the tree or something. What does the design mean? That's what you would expect from this. But it's like his body's intact, and they think that he died of like an asthma attack at first. But then you find out later that he was like cut open with such precision that they didn't even notice that he's had organs removed. And so like that's a really interesting thing that I just didn't anticipate. And it kind of makes you want to keep going and be like, okay, what's going on here? Then there's all these little side things where like Bruce Campbell's dog is missing. At one point, Bruce Campbell's dog vomits up a heart, and you're like, holy shit. Then the mom who's like really religious, and you're saying that she might be in a cult, they have this sequence where she gathers a bunch of people in the church to talk about what's going on in the town, and she confronts Dylan's mom, at the end of this little gathering. But when they're having the gathering, it's not like what literally just happened in the last season of Stranger Things, where like it's like there's a couple of murders and everyone's out for blood and they're ready to like have a witch trial. It's like everyone in the town has had these kind of crazy experiences. Like
And
they've
there's
experienced
there's
rash.
this rash going around, and at first you think it's just Julie Bowen's
Just the
character,
mom.
Linda, but then
Right.
you notice that it's everybody. Everybody's raising their hand. She notices it on the dead boy's mom at the funeral. Bruce Campbell has the marks on his neck, and Julie Bowen at the end of the fourth episode is like almost
Breaking
attacked
in.
by this demon in the bar bathroom, while the kids are at the dance and conducting a ritual, and it starts to spread all over. All I'll say is this is the type of show where I purposely stopped after episode 4 so that I didn't get confused
Yeah.
when we started talking.
Yeah.
And it was like annoying because I finished episode 4 Thursday night and I was like, fuck, I really want to go into episode 5. Like, come on, like, can Saturday morning come already? So I think I'm going to watch episode 5 as soon as we're done here.
Yeah, no, dude, I totally understand because I want to watch it too. And there's only 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then, we're covering the first half. There's a lot of people that probably have watched the whole show and they're like, we know what's going to happen, but we're only covering the first 4 episodes. The show kind of hits a kind of crescendo almost though by the 4th episode where a lot of shit goes down. One thing that we haven't really established is that I think it's either in the first or the second episode. I think it's the first episode. Dylan gets picked up by the police because no, it's the second episode. It's the second episode. He's riding his bike in the middle of the night and he gets picked up by the police because it's, there's a murder on the loose. Like this is kind of suspicious, this kid on the side of the street. And then you have this really great scene where he's interrogated by Bruce Campbell, but Bruce Campbell is like respectful. He's kind to him. He kind of is trying to set him on the right path. It's not like he's like grilling him and he's like, trying to pin something on the kid. And then Bruce Campbell shows that this girl that Dylan's into is his granddaughter, right? And then that leads to this great scene in the 4th episode where it's homecoming and everyone's off to see Dylan and his new girlfriend for homecoming. And then Bruce Campbell makes that connection between, this guy's dating my granddaughter. That's the first time we see Bruce Campbell actually not be this loving father character. He's actually kind of mean and a little threatening because he's worried that Dylan's going to corrupt or do something wrong to his granddaughter. Whereas his granddaughter is the one that's like all into sacrifices and Satanism.
I will say there's a moment it wouldn't be a Lasercast stream if we didn't get a little bit creepy. But like there's this moment in the fourth episode where at the dance, she lures Dylan downstairs. There's a pentagram on the floor, and she's
Right.
like, I basically I want to have sex right now on the pentagram. And then he turns around, and all of a sudden, all the other high school kids who are in the cult are there. And she's like, just do it, Dylan. And he's like, I can't. And then he like commits to it before it gets stopped. But part of me is like sitting there going like, yeah, if a girl who looked like that when I was in high school was like, have sex with me in front of all of these people while they chant, I'd be like, I guess I have to, right? Like, like they didn't have girls that looked like that when I was in high school.
Oh, believe me, I know. It's weird because like,
by the way,
it's supposed to be this real sex.
The actress is in her 20s. I looked it up, so we're not perving over a child, I promise.
Right. And it's funny because it's supposed to be this like sort of sexy, seductive scene, but you're also supposed to feel like, oh, this is awkward and weird because there's all these people around. But then it's sort of like highlighted how awkward and weird it is because he's essentially on top of her and he's got these tighty whities on. Right. It's just like, it looks so like, it just feels so weird. Like looking at this boy in tighty whities on top of this girl. Thankfully, Bruce Campbell comes in and stops this from happening before we see it go further. And that's where the show kind of leaves off. That's where episode 4 leaves off.
I know.
Where they're busted. And I'm like, okay, how's he going to get out of this? See, what's interesting is that like there's been multiple times in this season so far where it seems like, oh man, Dylan's really going to get in trouble with this. Like you talked about the carving the pentagram into his hand scene, right? So basically he's playing it off like he is into this Satanism stuff. He's in a cult. He likes to sacrifice things. Like that's his shtick. And then they kind of call his bluff by bringing a cat to him and say, okay, well, sacrifice this cat, right? And you'd think, okay, well, there's going to be this kind of contrived thing where the cat's going to get away, and they don't have to call his bluff, like he gets out of it, right? Well, he lets the cat go, but then he does this thing where he's like, you can't tell me what to sacrifice, and then he literally carves the pentagram into his hand. So it's like every time you think it's going to go a certain way, it goes a different way. And every time you think it's going to be like, oh, this is going to show that he's not really into this stuff and it's a phony, they're able to work it to where he's still able to carry on this ruse episode to episode, even though like they try to go to call his bluff, every episode.
Yeah. And I think that shows how good MJ Anthony is in this show because he's like he does feel like a completely awkward teenager. He's like an outcast because him and his friends are outcasts. They're in a metal band in suburban, probably a suburb of Detroit in 1989. They get picked on by like the football players and the cool kids. But then like he's accepted into this group all of a sudden. And so he has like that imposter syndrome, and he's really good at like portraying that imposter syndrome of like, I'm really not supposed to be like walking around with this guy Cliff, who's on the football team. I'm really not supposed to be making out with the hottest girl in school because that's like not what my role in the school is. Right. And like, so he plays it off in like, in one case, he's like, there's like a great scene where she visits him at like night and brings him like her dad who ran away. And I'm sure that's going to like be a mystery of like who her dad is maybe. She brings him his guitar and he's like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. I love you. You're like my dream girl. And then she's like, yeah. And then we'll use it to summon Satan. And he's like, oh, fuck. It's like, I'm horny, but I'm scared and I love you, but I'm also deathly afraid of you. And he plays that so fucking well. And I really just love the interactions of him and Dylan, Jordy, and Spud. They play off each other so well. Kenzel Curtis has this great scene in the woods where he meets Bruce Campbell in the woods at night, and you would think again that that's going to be a scene where Bruce Campbell's going to like crack jokes, and instead it's like this actually like they have like some really interesting, like profound almost dialogue where like
Yeah.
Officer Dandridge is like or Chief Dandridge is like, you know, Spud, you always get into trouble, but you always kind of, yeah, you're never really malicious. So I kind of like you for that. And he's like, yeah, well, you know, you told me to get closure, and that's what I'm doing. And he's like, damn it, you know, like, you're using my words against me. And like you could tell that like what's happening in the town is affecting everybody a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And so like I just can't wait to see where it goes, because there's comedy elements to this. There's like a phony cult. There's a real cult. There's actual demons. There's like human demons. I'm really excited to see where we go over these next 4 episodes.
Yeah, and we'll have to cover it for next weekend too then. So we'll watch the next 4 and then we'll record another video next Saturday. Hopefully the word gets out on this show and people are into it and they make a season 2. Have you heard anything about them renewing it?
They made some hints to it at Comic-Con. I don't know. I mean, it's Peacock, so it does like maybe this is going to get good views. Like I don't know what Peacock's viewership is. Like you said, it's not Netflix, it's not Amazon Prime, it's not Max.
It's not
but
Hulu.
But yeah, Peacock is definitely in that second. I think they're close to the top of like the second tier of streaming services. There's another show on there right now that we've talked about covering called Teacup, which is a James Wan production that looks like the previews for it look fucking great. And just to like toot Peacock's horn a little bit, like they put out, as most of the streaming channels do, they put out like a Halloween collection. And I went through it the other day. Like they have a pretty great horror selection. Like it goes back to like the Universal classics. And then it, you know, including like some fresh stuff from today. And it looks like they got a pretty good selection. I mean, we have it in the house because it's $5 a month, and like all the WWE network stuff is on there.
Oh shit. Okay.
So like we don't have to pay to watch WrestleMania on pay-per-view. We just go on Peacock.
That's fucking awesome.
But I think they're leaving Peacock at the end of this year to go to Netflix. So I don't even know if I'm going to have Peacock next year. We'll see. But you know, it's if they put out, you know, more shows like this, it's worth checking out, definitely.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, Danny, 2 things. We actually made it through a whole Saturday recording without it like freezing and kicking one of us out of the room. That's always a plus. But then besides that, I think this is going to be our last recording together before Halloween, right?
Yes, probably.
Yes. Yeah, so this is actually kind of the perfect show to cover before Halloween, besides maybe like some kind of Halloween spin-off show, like with Michael Myers. But yeah, guys, what's that?
The Corey Cunningham hour.
There you go. Boom. Bring it all back. Yeah. But guys, we fucking love this show, and we're excited to watch the last 4 episodes of this season. We want to wish you guys a happy Halloween. And if you're feeling kind of spooky and that's why you came over to our channel on October 31st, maybe Danny's got some other stuff you should check out. What are we doing right now, Danny?
So, I mean, the last week has just been a whirlwind for me. I was at New York Comic-Con 3 out of 4 days. I posted a ton of videos. The ones I already mentioned, the Mayfair Witches Season 2 panel, 2 panels. If you want to hear Bruce Campbell, Anna Camp, and Julie Bowen talk, I have about an hour of video, 2 separate videos on the channel you can listen to. I don't know if you've heard of these fine people, but Mike Flanagan, Kate Siegel, Carl Gugino, and Rahul Kohli, they were at Comic-Con, they called it the Fall of the House of Usher panel, but it ended up just being like a let's talk about all of Mike Flanagan's projects channel,
Right.
panel rather.
Right.
And so I recorded the entire hour-long panel with the four of them, moderated by Josh Horowitz, and it was one of the funniest hours. You could just tell. I mean, obviously, Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel, they get along, but you could just tell that there's just genuine love and like reverence for each of them.
Right.
It was so fun. They're so funny together, and they talked about all of the projects that they worked on and all of his future projects, which include the TIFF winning Life of Chuck, which comes out next year, Toronto International Film Festival. It won the audience award a couple weeks ago. And then we also got a preview, not a preview, but he did talk about The Dark Tower. He talked about The Exorcist. If you want to listen to Mike Flanagan talk with his crew, the Flavengers, as they call themselves, for an hour, you can see that on the channel. And Charlotte and I got to meet Mike Flanagan, Kate Siegel, Raul Coley, and Carl Gugino. And they are genuinely four of the nicest people I think I've ever met at Comic-Con. I keep telling this story. The nicest thing, Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel, their autograph time at Comic-Con was 11 a.m. They came out at 10:45 and started signing immediately. And like, we've been at Comic-Con so many years in a row where it'll say 11 a.m. and then somebody will like stammer out from behind the curtain at like 11:30, and like the line is like getting restless, like, come on, like, where are they?
Yeah,
Nope.
yeah.
Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel came out 15 minutes early and started signing right away. They were like two of the first celebrities who had come out and started signing right away, and it was fucking amazing. They're just the coolest people. So that's what I have. I've posted a ton of my Comic-Con videos. I actually have a couple more Comic-Con videos that I still have to do. It's been a crazy week. I was at a concert this week. The Brooklyn Horror Film Festival was this week. I got to go and see Larry Fessenden win the Leviathan Award.
That's cool.
And they played his 1990s classic film Habit. We had horror trivia, final exam horror trivia, where I was on the winning team for the first time ever. And Charlotte and I took home the grand prize. Charlotte was able to make her debut at horror trivia because it was not at a bar. It was at a beer hall and restaurant. And so she was able to join us. And she actually answered a bunch of questions correctly. And we won. So shout out to Final Exam Horror Trivia, Ted Gagan and Michael Gingold, the amazing hosts, and Dark Sky Films for hosting, for sponsoring that. And it looks like we finally got our freeze moment at the end. So I'm going to peace out, follow the LassoCast, watch Hysteria, and we'll talk very soon.